We've got our first official look at Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, plus a bunch of details about the film. We're breaking it all down. This is the Nerdy News Rundown. Let's get you filled in. I'm not gonna lie, I still really think they should have just done the trailer. I think this is kind of whack, but whatever. So yes, Entertainment Weekly just dropped our first official look at Brie Larson in the Captain Marvel costume. They did a little interview, and there's going to be even more information coming out in the official magazine release later this month. But for now, we got one page of text with some questions and answered comments from the directors and Brie Larson herself, and I'll be honest with you, I was kind of disappointed when I saw that. However, it's a dense page of text. There's actually a lot to take away from it. Let's start out with the comments Brie Larson made about the character. She said that it is impossible for Carol Danvers not to be herself. She is aggressive, she has a temper, she can be invasive and in your face, and she goes on to speak about a character flaw within that character. That's redundant. But the character flaw is that she doesn't always necessarily wait for orders. I mean, this sounds pretty cool. I like the idea of her being kind of hot-tempered and that being a part of her character flaw. Kind of falls in line with the Carol Danvers we know from the comics. But that's also a big reason why people do not like that character in the comics. So it's interesting to see, how people are going to react to that statement. But overall, Brie seemed pretty pumped to be playing that character. Now let's move along to some luscious details about the flick itself. And I think you're going to find a lot of this very interesting. The article explains that there will not be an origin of Carol's powers in the film at all. Instead, Brie Larson's character will already have her alien hybrid human powers at the beginning of the film. I think this is pretty cool. It's not going to actually have like an origin of sorts. We're going to jump right into it, and she is already going to have her powers. But on top of that, she's actually already off Earth. She apparently abandons her Earth life to join, and get this is really cool, a super elite Kree military force known as Star Force. Star Force will be led by Jude Law's character, so we can expect to probably see a lot of him giving orders and Carol not following them. That seems pretty cool to me, but I love the idea of us jumping in. She's already got her powers. She's off Earth on a Kree military force. That's super cool. So I'm actually pretty excited about that. The article then goes on to explain that Carol Danvers will find herself back on Earth with new questions about her origin and the event that gave her her powers, and with a group of adversaries known as the Skrull. Now, the article goes on to explain that the Skrull are a formidable force, and their shape-shifting ability makes them even more formidable. What this means is that they are doing a version of Secret Invasion in this movie. Now, a lot of Marvel fans thought we were going to introduce the idea of the Kree-Skrull War in Captain Marvel, and then we'll save Secret Invasion for a later date. Apparently, that is actually not going to be what happens, or at least not the beginning of what happens. Instead, the Skrull will be shape-shifting, and we are likely to see characters that we know, like Phil Coulson, Sam Jackson, maybe even Kobe Smulders as Maria Hill, end up being Skrulls. Now, in the 90s, this is way before any of the Avengers that we know, so there could be other heroes in play that are perhaps on the radar of S.H.I.E.L.D., perhaps even been a part of a different version of the Avengers Initiative with Nick Fury, and it'll be interesting to see if any of those characters end up being Skrulls. I don't know, I'm kind of up and down on that one. I was actually really hoping that Secret Invasion would be carried on with the characters we know and love, and the idea of some of these characters like Black Widow or Hawkeye having been Skrulls the entire time would have been mind-blowing and would have been a really, really cool thing to set up in the future. And who knows, we might still get that, but we are definitely going to be getting shape-shifting Skrulls in the Captain Marvel movie. The article finishes up with the directors talking about this character and how she's not godlike or doesn't have this connection to any crazy otherworld thing. Instead, she's just a human, and some of her greatest weaknesses and strengths come from the fact that she is a human and quote-unquote messy. This is really cool, could hint to the alcoholism, the anger problems that we see the comic book version of this character deal with. I'd love to see some of that brought over into the film, because I ultimately want a complex version of Captain Marvel, not just a strong version. Now, real quick, I want to go to Speculation Town about just a couple of things. Now, I think, just reading between the lines of what they talk about in this article, it's very possible that Carol Danvers will lose Jude Law, or Jude Law will die earlier on in the film, and there will be some kind of revolution about her powers. Perhaps she's not just Kree. Perhaps there is some Skrull powers within her as well. We do know that they are actually changing the origin of Captain Marvel in this movie. This is something that the directors and Kevin Feige have spoken to. So perhaps Carol comes back to Earth, no longer has Jude Law, is on a trail of vengeance, but also is very curious about the reality of the powers that she has. Either way, this seems really cool, and am I disappointed that we don't have the trailer? Of course, but am I pumped about not only the look of Captain Marvel, but all of the things said in this article? Absolutely yes. Particularly, I'm pumped that she's gonna have her powers at the start. I'm excited that she's hanging out with the Kree. The Kree-Skrull conflict will likely play a big part in that narrative, and I absolutely love the fact that the Skrulls are going to be shape-shifting in this movie. So that's the news out there. We've got our first look at Captain Marvel, plus a bunch of details about the movie. I'm pretty excited. Still want the trailer though. I want to know what all of you think about this, so let me know your thoughts about the first look at Captain Marvel in the comment section below. That is going to do it for today's show. Wednesday, hump day. You're almost there, guys. It was a short week anyways this time, so, you know, you should all make it just fine. As I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and nerdy day, and I will see you in the next video.